Hello, everyone. I am so excited. Today's guest is a powerhouse of a practitioner, and she's somebody after my own heart. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with Kelley Marie today. She has been on a long journey to holistic health, and I'm going to let her share her story so I don't give anything away. But Kelley, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to be able to chat and share my heart and whatever's going to come out of this conversation with you.
Yes, I appreciate you a lot. I love your mission. I love all the work you do.
Mhm.
So it's just amazing. And just so everybody knows, all of her information will be in the show notes. So go down there, take a look at it, and click on everything and make sure you like, subscribe, and share all of this with everyone. So, I mean, how long have you been a practitioner, Kelley?
Going on, this whole thing started in 2020 when I lost my dad in December. So I'd probably say, I think right in December. Well, I lost him in October. Right in December of that year, I decided to sign up to be an integrative health practitioner. But my background is actually, I have my doctorate in physical therapy. So
Okay.
in the space, I feel like basically since 2017, but I started my business in 2020 after his loss.
That's amazing. And that's kind of where your story starts, isn't it, with your dad?
Yeah.
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 Do you want to share that with us? I know
Yeah,
it's a hard one.
absolutely. So first and foremost, a little context. I had a dream when I was 16 that I was going to be a nutritionist, and I was like,
You did?
absolutely not, because I was a chicken fingers and French fries person. I till this day still am. I love sweets. Like it's pretty terrible.
Yeah.
So I was like, I can't really do that if I don't live the value. And that's actually where PT school came in. And I had to dissect cadavers, which was an incredible
Ooh,
experience.
wow.
But in doing so, that's kind of like what switched me into eating healthy and being surrounded by healthy people. So that was like really the first shift. Then, because I was a physical therapist and what I learned in physical therapy school was something called differential diagnosis. What that means is basically the capacity to understand, is it actually left shoulder pain or is someone having a heart attack?
Oh.
That's
Hmm.
the ability to be able to take the information and say, okay, do I need to refer this person out or are we going to treat them in-house? And
Right.
I say that because without that, I don't think, and I have goosebumps, none of this would have started.
Mm.
I, my dad started presenting. For context, he lost a lot of people in his life, and he started presenting with a lot of liver symptoms, but he was technically textbook an alcoholic. And so with that, I kind of had it always in the back of my head that like he was going to pass from something related to his liver or his,
Mm.
because he used to smoke as well.
Okay.
Um, Fast forward, he started in 2020, July, with a cough, which is very interesting because it was a liver problem. And I feel like people don't
Mm.
talk about
Don't
that,
talk
right?
about that. Yeah.
And it's not that I understood that it was a liver problem in that moment. I didn't, but he did have itchiness all the time. The man would walk around with a back scratcher. That is a liver sign.
Hmm.
He had right shoulder pain, which I tried to treat Band-Aid wise as a physical therapist,
Sure.
and it wouldn't improve. So I was like, that's weird. And then he started having a little bit of right flank pain. And I was
Oh,
like, okay. So all of the signs and symptoms were pointing to liver.
right.
So I'm going to make a really long story short because it was a lot of back and forth. You know how finding cancer, I feel like, takes a million different
It does.
practitioners.
Yeah.
But anyway, I had told his regular doctor in July that I think they should rerun his labs. And his doctor told me no, because they had just run them in June, June 29th to be exact.
Hmm.
And long story short, someone decided to run his liver enzymes when he was trying to do a COVID test, one of many,
Oh,
because he was
right.
coughing. So they thought that it was that.
Sure.
They ruled out lung cancer at that point, and then his liver enzymes came back in like the 500, 600s,
Oh, wow.
which for me, I prefer them to be in optimal range, which is below 26, which a lot of people
Right.
aren't there either. So then I immediately knew what happened. They sent him to the hospital. They kind of said, "Oh, your liver's fine. You can go home." He was in and out of the hospital, I think, within 4 or 5 hours, which I think
Really?
was strange.
That's
Yeah.
strange. Yeah.
Um, and then that kind of was the cascade that led us to, okay, well, let's do a pulmonary function test. Let's do a colonoscopy because they did do a liver biopsy when they ran a scan, and that to me it was a game-changing piece, I feel like, where
Mm-hmm.
I was driving to my physical therapy job and I found a study that stated that there was a link between a man who had a cough, persistent cough, and specifically what's called hepatocellular carcinoma, which is liver cancer. In
Okay.
that moment, I knew that that had to be what had happened,
Mm.
was happening. And so that was the same day, I believe, that they ran his scan and they found two huge tumors in his liver.
Well,
And basically from there on out, he passed away in, I don't know, 6 weeks to 2 months, maybe. Um, and he never got treatment. None of that ever happened. The bedside manner of the doctors, unfortunately, was not ideal.
wow.
Such a case, like, it's mind-blowing, honestly. And that's when I knew, because of all of these different interactions, I was like, something has to happen. And in that, I was a teaching assistant in the cadaver lab for the second time now. And my practitioner, no, my professor told me, Kelly, look into integrative health. Just be mindful. There's a lot of people that don't speak the language well, but there's a lot of people that can help you. His wife had healed an autoimmune condition. And he's like, look, the cancer centers are popping up left and right because of the money that they're bringing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I was like, oh, wow, he's not wrong. And that's what made me find King Coffee, which is then what
Mm.
made me find Emily Morrow, which is then what made me go through the
Right.
whole her group program when my dad had passed away, because my dad never made it to his session with her. And that's kind of how all of this started.
Wow.
Yeah. Then I became an integrative health practitioner, wasn't done there, and then did NTP. Um, and honestly, for me, I hated labs. I really did.
Mm-hmm.
In
I
physical
avoided them forever.
in
Yeah.
physical therapy school, I was like, what's the point of these? Like, they
What do
don't
you
really
need labs
do
for?
anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I can't run my practice without them
Yeah.
because they say
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just like a piece of the puzzle. Why would you say labs are so important now?
Because I know how to read them optimally.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was taught in PT school, I had to not only memorize them, but they really didn't give us that much context.
Right. Right.
And what I think is really interesting is, like, for example, I don't ever really review just the labs that people will bring me because I don't think that they're usually whole enough.
Right.
But it's so interesting that from, for example, MCV, you can see that someone's thyroid's off without even having a thyroid
A
panel.
thyroid panel. Yeah.
And so I don't think we understand how connected the body is. And that's where things started to click for me, because I was like, oh, he had a cough. But the reason he had a cough was because the reflex, when you breathe, your diaphragm lowers, and his liver was so enlarged that the diaphragm couldn't lower. And it goes to show you again how everything's connected. So again, I use labs as we're lifting the hood of the car. A car doesn't only run with gas. It needs an
Mhm.
engine, it needs coolant, it needs liquids, it needs all of these different things. We love to zoom in, and the same thing happened with my dad, right? Like, oh, it's his liver, or oh, it's his lungs because he's coughing, and let's put him on every single cough medicine that we can try to
Right.
stop cough, when in reality it was liver cancer.
Liver. There's no
Like,
cough medicine that's going to fix that.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's really allowed me to use it as a tool to zoom out and put the actual picture of what's happening with the person in front of me,
Yeah.
um, which makes me also think, towards the end of my career as a practicing physical therapist, I started to wonder, since I was already in integrative health, how many of these people with back pain
Mm,
are actually dehydrated
right.
because
Yeah.
they're having kidney pain and
So
not
many.
actually back pain, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
or now that I know the emotional component, how many of them have self-devaluation conflicts that also aren't addressed, and how that presents in the body. And so again,
Yeah.
everything's just so connected, and we keep trying to, like, go to your endo, go to your GI, and no one's
Hmm.
actually seeing things for how they work together.
It's so important. What are some other lab markers that you use to pinpoint things that,
Yeah.
you're just not going to get in mainstream medical?
Yeah. My favorite is always going to be stomach acid, which is gastrin.
Yeah.
Um, Honestly, I feel like if you don't start there, you're kind of missing a big piece of the puzzle. And there's a couple of reasons why stomach acid could be low, right? It could be that there's an infection that's causing stomach acid to be low, but it can also be that stress is so high. And the reason stomach acid is important is because you need to be able to absorb. And if
Yeah.
you don't absorb, it doesn't matter what you're eating, how many good supplements you're taking, it's kind of a waste. And so that to me is one of the most important. I also really like inflammation levels.
Okay.
So CRP is one of my favorites. I have another story there. My mom had breast cancer 2 years after the loss of my dad, which is linked emotionally to separation
Oh, yeah.
conflicts. But I had asked her doctor to run CRP and they didn't. And when I decided to run it, it was at 19 and we want it
Oh,
one.
yeah.
So of course you're showing an inflammatory response there. So I really like that marker. I love insulin more than I love A1C or actual glucose because it can be so many years. I think it's like over 10 years that your glucose and your A1C can kind of cover up the reality of what's happening with your
Yeah.
metabolism. So I like that. And then really what I feel like a lot of people don't talk about is leptin. I
That's a good one.
love that's like my one of my favorites currently. And that's more so from the standpoint of weight loss resistance, light, and how that impacts so many different parts of how our bodies function. Especially with the weight loss resistance piece, I feel like I see that a lot, especially with like the hormone conditions that I deal with. In
Yeah. Well, let's dive into that because what do you mean when you say light?
Ooh, okay.
So
So we
this is
can,
going to be good, I can tell.
yeah, I was like, we could just talk about
Let's
this
just talk about this.
for the
Yeah.
whole hour. Um, I don't think that we really place enough emphasis on the quality of light and how it impacts us.
Hmm.
I can't remember who it was that talked about it. I know Dr. Jack Cruz talks about it a lot, and I think that's maybe where I heard this from. But you can get, let's say you have a Snickers bar in the package and you're underneath an LED light. You don't even
Okay.
have to eat the Snickers bar for your blood sugar to rise the way that it would if you were to eat this because of the blue light.
Isn't that crazy?
It's insane. And that's just because, again, everything is wonderfully made in your body. It has a purpose. So the point of your body raising your blood sugar is because blue light occurs with the sun.
Hmm.
Um, but what that means is that in order to protect you from the sun, your body raises your cortisol levels. So your stress, and when your stress goes up, your blood sugar goes up. And so I just think about all of the people that are in an office setting
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
are either wearing blue light blockers, which probably aren't really filtering the way that they should, or
Hmm.
if they are wearing blue light blockers are underneath lights, and most of your receptors are in your eyes, but also on your skin.
Right.
And so I feel like we don't take that into consideration. And that's really important for all kinds of things because one thing to consider from the blood sugar standpoint is if you are insulin resistant, which we know so many people are, you are automatically leptin resistant. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you don't fix the leptin problem, you're never probably going to fix the insulin problem. So a lot of people are chasing, how do I fix my meal and all of this stuff? And it's like, well, it's more simple than that. You just need light in your eyes first thing in the morning.
Mm-hmm. So
As
so literally sunshine bathing,
yeah,
not like laying out, but just like even just getting it in your
yeah,
eyes. Yeah.
yeah. And so specifically, we've been taught to believe that UVA and UVB light are so terrible for us.
Right.
But UVA light is actually, I mean, if I could go on and on about what it does for you. It lowers
Yeah,
your
go ahead. Let's tell
levels.
people because people
Yeah,
need to know because we have been
yeah,
taught to be so afraid of the
scared.
sun.
Yeah,
Sunscreen, sunscreen, sunscreen. And I've had a really rare melanoma, like
yeah,
systemically, and I never avoid the sun because
yeah.
that's probably part of my reason why I wasn't in the sun enough and my immune system was down because I didn't have enough sunlight.
Well, curious about that. Where did they find the melanoma?
On the inside of the left leg.
That's what I was going to say, because it's usually in places that don't see the sun very
Right.
frequently, from
Yeah.
what research has shown. Um, So UVA light, first and foremost, like I said, your eyes are going to be the best place because right behind your eyeball is this really tiny little thing called your suprachiasmatic nucleus. And that directly speaks to so many different parts of your body. And that is what's going to tell you make more of this hormone, make less of this hormone. From you getting sunlight first thing in your eyes, preferably in a perfect world, right as soon as you wake up. You don't look at anything else. You don't turn on any other lights in your house. You simply go outside. 2 to 10 minutes is the bare minimum. I would prefer 30 minutes to an hour. That's why I tend to walk first thing in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Getting that light behind your eyes lowers your inflammation, regulates your appetite, releases endorphins, lowers your stress hormone. That to me is the biggest one.
Huge.
Helps to burn fat, gives you a tan, which is important for other reasons. What else am I missing? And makes molecular hydrogen and molecular oxygen. And what
Right.
molecular hydrogen and oxygen are these really tiny little oxygen and hydrogen molecules that are able to really become antioxidant in your body. They're really studied the molecular hydrogen a lot in the cancer space. So all of that just from getting light in your eyes. Now, you don't want to wear
Amazing.
contacts, you don't want to wear regular glasses. There are certain contacts that are dailies that don't have UV protection in them for those in case you're interested in them. And if you have LASIK, usually that's not ideal. But then I would just suggest your skin, whatever you can. And I know in the wintertime for some people it's hard, but whatever you can get as much sunlight. However, a lot of people think that they're getting vitamin D at that time. You're not.
Mm-mm.
Vitamin D only occurs when there's UVB light. And again, before we get into, oh, but my vitamin D is low, well, there's so many things that happen with vitamin D. Like, do you have enough magnesium? If you don't,
Right.
might not be able to use it. Are you eating enough fats in your diet? Is your liver and are your kidneys working well? All of these different things play a role, but really UVB light, at least in Miami, which is way down south, in the summertime around now, typically it's around 9 to 5. So think about it.
Mm.
Most people aren't getting vitamin D because
No,
again,
they're not outside.
exactly. So light is tough, but honestly, I've seen it bring back someone's cycle,
Yep.
seen it be the game changer for weight loss. And it's free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You could just go enjoy the sun multiple times a day.
Yep.
And I think we've been taught too to like work through your breaks, to work through this, work through that. So I go and I sit outside. Well, I go for a walk first thing in the morning, right? And I
Yeah.
try not to turn lights on. It depends on the time of year, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah, 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 of course.
Yeah, but then I go out for an hour with my dogs. It's usually like 6:30 a.m. And then I come back and I like to intermittent fast for a little bit, but then I'll go back outside and sit in the sun and eat my breakfast.
For sure. I love eating in the sun
Right?
because
Eating in the
it's
sun is
different
huge.
signals. Yeah.
Yeah. So can we talk about that? Like what signals are we getting when we
Yeah.
eat in the sun?
Well, I feel like there's actually a protein powder that I love called Signals, and that
Mm.
word has like stuck with me a lot because what I've come to find as I've studied light is that the body is all about signals.
Yes.
If it doesn't have the signals, it's not going to function well.
Yep.
And eating in the sun, having your food get the sunlight on it, quite literally changes the chemicals and how it breaks down in the body. It really does give you a lot more information than, again, we consider. And so it's something so simple.
Right?
It's something so simple and it really does make such a big difference for inflammation. I mean, you could even add another layer to that and put your feet in the grass while you're eating sometimes too.
Exactly. And I
Now you're
do that too.
grounding.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm like really big on we're not going to change society, but we know how important these really minimal signals are. And so, how can we add that into our day to day?
Right.
And so, even going back to that, like protein powder, it has all of the different vitamins and minerals and things that you need in order to, again, if this checkpoint is not working, well, guess what? This one's not going to work. And what
Hmm.
I've come to find is nutrient deficiency is probably one of the main things I see in my practice, but
Oh,
it
me too.
is one of the reasons why we end up with things like big C cancer,
Right.
right? Um,
Hmm.
is because the body doesn't have the bare minimum that it needs to do and to turn on the next part of the
Right.
funnel to make
Right.
energy or whatever the case may be. So, I mean, again, it's the difference between making enough stomach acid and not
Mm-hmm.
is
Yeah.
something as simple as like what again the sun may help with
Right.
grounding, taking you into from this I'm rushed, I'm in front of my computer, I'm not breathing, I'm like go 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 into hey, I can actually digest because I'm outside. We know bird song calms the nervous system. We know
Mm-hmm.
putting your feet in the grass calms the nervous system. We know the sun changes. And so again, little tiny things like that.
Okay. I don't think we can emphasize that enough. We were
Yeah.
talking about what do we want to talk about today? And you're like foundations. Can it get more
Yeah.
foundational
Yeah.
than putting your toes on the ground and
Yeah.
sitting in the sun?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And the fact that the sun even changes the structure of your food and how it interacts in your body, it just blows me away. I mean, God is so particular, right? He's so particular and
Yeah.
he has put everything we need into our environment,
Yeah.
that we need to stay healthy. And it's not expensive, like, oh, I can't afford to be healthy. You can do both of those things. There's a sun that's free because it's out there. Um, and then there's the ground, which is free
Yeah.
because you can just walk on it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's simple to do.
And we can talk about that too, right? Because I feel like that's where, unfortunately, a lot of people are like, "Oh, but they like spray with pesticides, and what do I do?" Because now we're very like this about
We
health,
are. Hmm.
and that brings so much
Stress.
stress and inflammation.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, now I'm gonna be moving. They may be spraying my lawn. I have no other option. What am I gonna do if there's like an HOA, for example?
Right.
Well, I've looked into, can I buy an organic blanket that I could sit on the organic blanket? Look, the truth is, if they're spraying, that blows in the wind and will go, I think it's like 3 miles at bare
Yeah,
minimum.
it's just
So
you
like
can't get away from it.
yeah, like it is what it is kind of thing. And like my
Hmm.
goal is the same thing for the people that are like, oh, well, there's like power lines that run under. It's never gonna be perfect. So we just need to get something in, right?
Hmm.
If you cannot get outside, drive with the windows down.
Right.
That allows sun in your eyes. If you cannot get outside of your house, open a window. I
Right.
feel like as a practitioner, I don't know about you, but I'm always met with like some form of
Yes. Yes.
excuse is really what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Because we live in a world of convenience. And
Hmm.
that's the thing that health right now requires you to be inconvenienced.
Totally. Totally. And you can sit, and that it's not as good, but you can stand on the cement. You're going to get some grounding, right? You can go in your basement for that matter. Like
Yeah.
in the winter, I will go down and I will stand in my basement and
Yeah.
like and I'll eat down there sometimes just because
Yeah.
I just need to get away. I'm like I feel like I need to be grounded. You can take a bath. You're going to get some grounding from just being in water. Get yourself a
Exactly.
filter. Like how yes, we don't want to be in chemicals, but we can't avoid them. They're in our environment. That's why I teach some detox stuff to do. Like
Correct.
there's always things that we just have to keep working on our health. We just can't like be lackadaisical about it.
Correct.
But
And I think,
these are all really foundational.
yeah, yeah. And I think right now too, there's so much health anxiety out there
So much, Kelly.
that I almost see like that's worse. And that's why I say, what's the saying? Like, don't let good be the enemy of better or something like that. I don't know how that saying goes, but like, don't get lost in the sauce, basically. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
again, you do what you can where you're at. If
yeah.
you
Hmm.
ate the fried chicken one day, it's gonna be okay. The goal is actually not to fear these things so much, but to create resilience in the body.
Right, right.
Because if you do have to take a kid to soccer and they only have a hot dog and you haven't eaten, what's worse? Eating the hot dog or not eating at all?
Hmm.
It depends on the situation, right? And I
Correct.
always say context matters. Context
Context so
always
matters. Hmm.
matters.
Yeah,
Um, and so I think that that's really important, especially in a world with like so much information. And I see it in my family and my friends. They're like, oh, I bought this supplement and I bought this supplement. And I'm like, my friends, a supplement's not going to save your life.
right.
It's the day in and the day out. And it's having the hard look in yourself in the mirror and being like, okay, so am I not losing weight? A, because I have candida, valid. Am I not losing weight because what got me to get candida? Probably sometimes my food choices or my inability to manage stress.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I have the capacity to change.
Right.
But just taking a supplement and continuing to do what it is that got you to point A in the first place is not going to get you to the next one. And that's where things get challenging, I find, is where we come in and have to be like,
Yeah. 'Cause we want to get people off that hamster wheel.
yeah, 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 yeah. And again, I think that's the toughest part of healing is looking at yourself in the mirror and being like, what am I playing into this situation?
Oh
Where's
yeah.
my head at? What
Yeah.
about are my thoughts driving the inflammation?
Yeah, and I don't, let's talk about that a little bit too.
Yeah.
So how do our emotions drive that inflammatory process?
Um, Man, I can go on and on about this one too. So, we know about neuroplasticity, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I'll kind of
Yep.
try and give a little bit of an explanation because it can go really in depth. There's this wonderful 2-minute video on YouTube that I use with like all of my clients to explain. Neuroplasticity, and I'll use the example of a stroke because I feel like it's easier to understand.
Okay.
When you're treating someone as a physical therapist, you're treating someone that had a stroke, let's say that they can't use their right hand,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're going to have the person, let's say you want to learn how to eat again,
Mm-hmm.
feed themselves with the left hand while looking in a mirror. Why is
Ah,
that? Because you're using something called mirror neurons to hopefully grow the nerves that have been impacted on this side of the body, which tends to be opposite side.
right.
Think about kids, right? Kids are mirrors, kids are sponges. It's because they use those mirror neurons.
Right.
Um, so with that, when it comes to thoughts, we have, I think it's like 70 to 90,000 thoughts a day. Most of them are negative. They tend to be the same ones as the day before. And so if you are not able to first understand what you're thinking, then you're going to be really confused as to why a rash shows up,
Right.
or diarrhea shows up, or breast cancer shows up. There's a really great book called The Body Keeps the Score. I'm sure you've,
Such a good book.
yeah, I haven't even finished it because it's so dense,
Yes.
but it's just crazy the examples that they use in that book of how these women who had been through really crazy stories just spoke to someone. And the following day, I don't know if it was like their memory was back, but like they were a different person.
Mm,
And it was just so crazy to me. So I started going down the rabbit hole of a study called German New Medicine,
yeah.
which I'm sure you've spoken, especially with Angie, about because we talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so in German New Medicine, it actually talks about how symptoms are a result of healing, which I think is very interesting because in Western medicine, we're taught there's a fever, you have to stop the fever. If there's pain, you have to stop pain.
Pain. Mm-hmm.
And if there's a scab, you know that you probably got cut and no one
Yeah.
questions it. So why now are we questioning all of these different symptoms that are showing up? I'm not saying that, again, H. pylori is not problematic. I'm not saying that the
Yep.
nutrient deficiencies don't cause issues, but it's crazy how when I bring up the emotional component to some of my clients, things also start to fade. When we start to bring things up and I'm like, hey, so like you have PCOS, what types of loss have you faced in your life? Because that's what PCOS is linked to.
Right.
They're like, oh wow, now that you say that, like I got diagnosed right after a breakup with my boyfriend
Mm-hmm.
back when I was
Mm-hmm.
15.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine, you're not taught how to deal with loss, and now you
No.
your first breakup, and of course you're like, what the heck? And so it's it doesn't pass unless you go in here and also start to understand what those patterns and what those thoughts are. Because again, if we're thinking the same thought today as we did yesterday and tomorrow as we did today, then what ends up happening is if they're negative thoughts, it's actually been studied that that will drive inflammation.
Right.
And I'll go a little bit deeper into that. So, our body was only made for a short period of stress, meaning go back to hunter-gatherer days. Typically, the women aren't hunting too much, the men would, but they're like, okay, going out, sprinting, and then coming back home with a meal, and then everyone's calm. Nowadays, you're getting cut off in traffic, your phone's constantly dinging, then you get an email from work, then you have to pick up the kids from soccer, and it's this constant arousal.
Right.
And constant arousal creates cortisol.
Hmm.
But let's talk about before cortisol comes cortisone. And everyone knows about cortisone due to like the injections and how it's anti-inflammatory.
Right.
Correct. Until it isn't. Because if you're
Hmm.
constantly in a nervous system or like this adrenaline state because you're going, 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 which most people are, then you're going to stay in the cortisol side of things. And that's going
Right.
to drive inflammation. And that's going to mess with your blood sugar. And that's going to cause weight loss resistance. And that's going to cause fatigue. And so it's like you're rolling down the hill, like kind of like Indiana Jones and the balls like
Right. Right.
um, so it really truly is all connected. And that's where understanding even how you were brought up, in my opinion, plays a really big role. Why do I
I
keep
think
picking
so.
the same fight? Why do I keep picking the same partner? Why does this work this way? And then you look, and it's not to put blame on the people who came before you, but that's technically what generational trauma is understanding, hey, well, so and so in my family never took responsibility for any of their actions. And so they always
Hmm.
place blame. So now I'm someone that doesn't take accountability. So when it's time for me to lose weight, I don't take accountability because it's not my
Right.
fault. Right. And so that, and really getting honest with those thoughts that you have, which a lot of time people don't even know that they're having those
No,
thoughts.
not until you take a really deep dive in there.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
it's hard. In my opinion, that's the hardest part is because no
Yeah.
one's coming to save you. It's you against you at that
Yeah.
point.
Oh my goodness, yes. Can I throw a scenario out there and then,
Absolutely.
tell me kind of how this would go?
Yeah.
So we'll say, theoretical client who ends up with they have a trauma that happens to them, say like a car accident or somebody dies, and then they get some weird infection, and then they end up with some other type of body trauma. So, and then they have to go into treatment for that. And then they have this whole cascade, and all of a sudden they are so wound up and so anxious and so like, why isn't God healing me? They just can't get out of it. And so they come to see you as a practitioner and, and they've been to like six different practitioners, right? And so
Yeah.
the thing that works for almost everybody else doesn't work for them. And so they don't think anything works for them and they speak that out loud. So they come to you and all of a sudden you're trying to shift that mindset. You're trying to shift those words to speak life. What does that look like? Like, can you kind of unwind that? Because I know there's people listening. They're like, that is me. Like
Yeah.
nothing ever works for me. And I've had this cascade since this one event.
Yeah. And I think it's so interesting, right? As I've gone practicing, you see almost like these avatars of
Mm-hmm.
certain clients, right? And I have had a couple of clients like this where I give them 10 solutions and they give me 15 problems. And I'm like,
Right.
that's not going to help us. And that's that victim mentality. And that's, let me be very clear, normal human experience. That's
Correct. Correct.
not
Yes, because
the,
you're not
it,
wanting to be that way. You just
exactly.
are that way at the moment.
So as I've gone studying the brain over time, we always are gaining a benefit. Humans are always going to be selfish.
Hmm.
And so the hardest part there is I always start with asking, do you really think you're going to heal?
It's such a good question.
Because, of course, everyone's like, yeah. And I'm like, but really? Because we wouldn't have usually so many problems. And I feel like that's a very fine line because I don't want to gaslight anybody
Correct.
because your reality is very true and what you're experiencing, I probably may not even understand fully.
Right.
Um, but it does require some hard questions.
It does.
And I think that that is what makes the difference between being like, oh yeah, let's just try like another protocol.
Hmm.
It's, well, okay, do we actually think we can heal? If the answer is truthfully yes, then let's unravel. When did this start?
Yeah.
When did the first symptom show up? What about this? Because again, joint pain, for example, which is so common,
Hmm.
is a self-devaluation. And
Hmm.
so think about it. I'm convinced everyone has a self-esteem problem at one
Oh,
point.
at one point in time, yes.
And so it's like, okay, then did you get into that accident and not maybe have the joint pain immediately, but when you couldn't heal the first thing, did someone tell you something and now you have joint pain because that event happened after this accident. And that's kind of unraveling and like peeling back the layers. And then you could throw on there some nervous system regulation stuff, but I think that's also very different for every single person.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it depends on what comes up within the conversation, but like I love somatic exercise
Yeah,
because a lot of times your emotions are stuck in your body and they want motion in order
they
to get.
do. Yes.
And so sometimes journaling isn't the way for some people,
Mm-hmm.
the same way that sometimes therapy isn't the
The
way
way. Yep.
for some people. I think that actually therapy is very few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
I do love the thought of like transformational coaching. So I do love having someone there to bounce ideas off, which is interesting because like I'm not a therapist,
Right.
but unintentionally as I'm going through things with
Kind of are.
I become one. And I was even as a physical therapist too, to an extent. You're with people for
Sure.
an entire hour multiple times. They start to share things with you. And it's like maybe we don't get to that on session one, but by
Mm-hmm.
session three, you happen to say something and that flicks something off in my head that makes me ask a certain question that maybe makes you be like, oh, wow.
Right.
And then all of a sudden the symptom's gone.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the heck?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that means you're moving through it and you're doing something like somatic exercise, you know?
Right. Right.
It just depends. But it really depends on who's in front of me. And I think that that's something really important too. Like, not everybody gets asked the same questions all the time, right?
No.
We're
Yeah.
treating the person in front of us.
Yeah. And that's so important. And to not compare yourself on your healing journey to somebody else,
Yeah,
right? Because none of us, I'm not on the same journey that you're on. We may do similar things, we have similar responses, all of that, but it's still not the same. And
yeah,
so really have to pay attention to what your body is saying and what your experiences have been and what the reality and the truth is of where you need to be going and what your body can handle.
absolutely. And not everybody's body can handle the same thing. And I'll give you a quick story here. I have a client with PCOS
Mm.
who decided when we first started working together that she was going to run a 5K. And I was like, hmm. Um, and then she had pretty bad insulin resistance. She was on metformin when she came to me, wasn't able to lose any weight. And I actually told her, I was like, I don't think you need to be training for a 5K. And I was like, was this your idea? She was like, well, now that you say that, it really wasn't for me.
Oh,
I was training a 5K because it was like the hard thing to do and it like gave me a goal and I wanted to do it at my son's school and I was
oh,
like, okay, but
mm-hmm,
like that's not what you actually want to be doing. So why don't we like put that on the back burner? And actually we took away all exercise.
mm-hmm,
She's only walking now and she's lost 10 pounds,
right.
you know? So sometimes, and that doesn't look the same for everybody.
It
Um,
doesn't. Yeah.
but it depends. Again, context matters.
Context does matter. I'll use myself as an example. I started working in an office, and that office was into CrossFit. And I was, what am I? I'll be 52 this year. So I think I was like 43 or 4 at the time. So had some hormonal disruption, just busy life, that kind of thing. And I'm like, I don't really want to do CrossFit. I like yoga. I like Pilates.
Yeah.
I spent a long time trying to heal my adrenal glands and stuff. And it was just a lot of kind of pressure to go because if you're in this office, this is what we do, right? And so I went to CrossFit and it was the worst 5 months of my life. Like I didn't sleep. I gained 15 pounds. And I don't gain weight. Like I just has
Yeah.
been my weight forever. And I was puffy and everything hurt and I couldn't sleep because I was in pain all the time. And then all of a sudden it just dawned on me like, I'm not doing this for me. Like, I don't even enjoy doing any of this. And
Yeah.
so I stopped and I went back to doing what I was doing before, which I knew was good for my body. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, those 15 pounds just like went away. And and then my pain went away too. And now I feel better now than I did then. And
Yeah.
it's just not doing those things for other people. Like I was just really actually abusing my body to fit in,
It's
at
like
age 43.
It's so interesting that you say that because I currently have a case that I'm working on, and she's having a really hard time getting pregnant
Mm,
and loves CrossFit. And so it like hurts my heart to be like, hey, but that's not what you need to be doing right now because it makes her happy. But at the same time, you're going 4 times a week and you don't even have a period and you're
right,
not sleeping well and you're not, if you're losing weight, it's because you're on 800 calories and Ozempic.
right,
That's not the way to do it either, you know? Um, so now I'm for sure going to tell her to stop CrossFit.
right. Well, yeah, and my
Yeah.
period was so disrupted during that time too. I mean,
Yep.
it was just actually awful.
Yeah.
So, you know, you hit a point in your life, you're like, I am not doing any of this to please anyone else. How does my body feel? And do I actually enjoy doing it? Does it bring me peace and joy? And that's where your endorphins get raised. And that's when you become creative and you build better relationships and friendships and your business grows and you know, you enjoy your children more. And there's so many factors there.
Yeah. Well, actually, just yesterday, I think. Are you familiar with Dr. Keneally?
Yes.
Okay. We took my mom there for her
Oh,
integrative
awesome.
side of things for her cancer treatment. She had breast cancer. Um, she just posted how specifically confidence raises testosterone.
Hmm.
I think it was community raises progesterone. And there was another one that I'm missing now. But again, these aren't supplements.
No.
Think of also like how disconnected we are now as humans.
Yeah.
And again, how much of that plays a role. Like back in the day, you had 10 kids and you were on a farm, and maybe you had like a neighbor over here, and you guys all met and you like traded or you did whatever.
Hmm.
Community was so different. Community
Totally.
exists right now only through screens for the most part. I'm not going to say that like people don't gather, but a lot of people don't. And I
Yeah.
think that loneliness also plays a really big role
Yeah.
in the illness that we see today and things like that too.
Yeah. Because we don't feel like somebody has your back. Like when I grew up in a town of 400 people.
Uh,
And, you know, if somebody had a challenge, whether, you know, their house was blown down in a tornado or a family member died, you know, somebody was sick and their crop needed to be harvested, like everybody came around and just helped. Like you just did. You got like 72 meals at your house.
yeah.
You're like, you were just well taken care
Care.
of. And, you know, fast forward 40 years later, not that people don't do that because we're still in small town Iowa. So, yes, there is some of that, but it's not to the depth that it was then. And I know just living in a town from 400 to 5,500 is like, I don't really feel like anybody has my back here, or very few. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
completely different. So there is something to be said about having that small community. Not that you have to live in a town of 400, but to
Right.
find that culture to, you know, just saturate yourself in
Yeah.
that community.
It's tough. It's definitely tough to find, I think. And now that we're gonna move, we're gonna have to do it.
Do it again.
Um,
Yeah.
but it's definitely hard to figure out what you're gonna do. Like that's why I like walking clubs or
Hmm.
something along the lines, exercise classes
Yeah.
where, I mean, again, within certain parameters based on
Yeah.
what you need for your body. But I definitely think that these are the things that don't get discussed nearly as much because, again, we
Yeah.
see someone talk about a product and we're like, oh, we need that. Like if it's going to save our life. And in reality, it's not.
That's usually not the case. Yeah. You can't supplement away lack of relationships. You can't supplement away lack of sunshine. Like you
Yeah.
have to actually be part of a community. You have to go outside and do all
Yeah.
those things.
Or what I can say is, I don't know about you if you see this, but for me, my sickest clients tend to be people like teachers and
Oh
nurses
my goodness. Yes. I
and
always say those are the most challenging clients.
and even sometimes police officers. I have one that I'm working with
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
pretty
Have a
challenging.
firefighter. Oh, bless
Yeah,
his heart. Yeah.
exactly. All of that is very hard. And I get that not everybody can just up and leave their profession, but I will say that part of their job is probably what's causing a lot of their illness.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of emotional, environmental toxicity there.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Whether we're talking about the schools that have mold in them,
Yeah.
probably, or the fire stations for sure have mold.
Oh my goodness.
My brother's a firefighter, that's why I say that.
Uh-huh.
And even just, I mean, the compounds and stuff like that that they come in contact with. But nurses who can't eat lunch, whose body is like in fight or flight the whole
Yeah,
time.
they're working all night long. They're yeah, and I realize we need those people.
Of course, absolutely.
And it's still at the same time, I feel there's got to be a better way to do
I
it.
agree. That's
Yeah.
kind of where my head is at for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Oh my goodness. Anything else you want to share, Kelly?
I mean, I could go on and on. Let me think. What I will say, since I see mostly hormone stuff, because I just feel like, again, this message needs to be put out there. Hormones are not a root cause.
Amen.
9 times out of 10, they are not a root cause. And again, we use this verbiage in the space because it's a word that is being thrown out there. And the reason I use it is almost because I hope that I'm like a sticking point where people
Hmm.
come to learn and then get taught the right things.
Right.
Um, I say that because working with women in perimenopause, having been on birth control, all of these things, I'm currently now seeing a lot of people who are in perimenopause specifically who go to their doctor and they're like, haven't even finished running labs yet. And the doctor's like, oh, I called in estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone to your pharmacy. And I'm like, but
Right.
she's having an anxiety attack.
Right.
I'm
Right.
like, oh, but she's 40, whatever. And so now that for sure has to be perimenopause. And I'm like, well, she has psoriasis.
Hmm.
Psoriasis plays a role with gut health. So why don't we
Yes.
check her gut, which we know is connected to the brain, which is where anxiety is created most often than not in that connection somewhere. Sure, it can be situational, but a lot of times it's because of the gut imbalance. And then we can consider the
Right.
hormone.
Right.
And I say that because I feel like it might be talked about more for guys, but even still not as much. Let's just jump on TRT,
Mm.
testosterone replacement
Yeah.
therapy.
Yeah.
Well, if you do that, your body is going to forget how to make its own. The same thing goes for thyroid medication. And I'll use another person that I'm going to meet with next week. Her TSH, which is the only number that this doctor ran for her
Yep.
thyroid, mind blowing to me, but
I know.
it is, um, was a 4.9, which is high.
Yeah.
But I worked with people who are at the 33, so not
Yeah.
really that high.
Yeah.
We brought it down naturally to a 4 within 6 months. So I say that
Amazing.
because immediately this doctor put this young woman, younger than me, I'm 31, on
Hmm.
Synthroid.
Right.
And the problem is, and this is what I told her, I said, totally fine if that's what you want to do, but just please know that the longer you're on it, the harder it's going to be to come off.
Right.
Because your body forgets. If you're giving it something, it's going to get lazy and it's not going to make its own. And
Right.
so I'm very much a big proponent of hormone replacement therapy, specifically bioidentical, once you get into perimenopause and menopause. But I think it has to be done well and not just like, hey, okay, we're here now. Let's go ahead and jump on it. You know,
Hmm. Yeah.
um, and that's what I wish more people knew, or wish more people knew too about how root causes like
Yes.
parasites and metals and mold can also cause anxiety
And hormone disruption.
and hormone disruption.
Right.
And how is it the parasite that caused the low stomach acid, or is it the low stomach acid that allowed the parasite? And
Exactly.
kind of sitting in this in between and understanding that it's not black and white. And unfortunately, you don't really get that in the medical system because it's just like a pretty
Yeah.
quick
Yeah.
turnaround. But that's something to me that's like so important because I just don't feel like it's talked about enough.
Oh, I agree. I agree. Then we get misdiagnosed and mistreated as women, and men too. But I
Yeah,
feel like I mean, I just see mainly women. I'm assuming that you see
same.
mainly
Mostly
women too.
women. I will say of I don't know, not very many men that I see.
Hmm.
Only two have had optimal testosterone levels.
Yep, I
I think
agree.
it's like crazy.
Yeah, I see even 20-year-old men that
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
their
yeah.
T is just like almost non-existent.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not a
So
testosterone issue. It's other issues going on in the body.
I think it's just this mismanagement of stress, in my opinion. And
Yeah.
everyone's like, well, what am I going to do? It's like, well, either you do something or. it's gonna knock you down into the ground. Like that's the only thing. Like
Yeah.
that's your only
I always tell
option.
my clients, you can make the choice or your body can make the choice. You decide. And
100%.
it's going to be a lot more fun if you make the choice.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, it's tough, right? We live busy lives,
we
most of
do.
us do,
We
even if
do.
you're in a small city, I feel
Yeah.
like, so it's definitely a challenge. And I think it is even more of a challenge with all of the information that's out there because it's like you're constantly wanting to consume and oh my gosh, what if my paint has VOCs in it? And what about this couch? And what
Right.
about
Yeah.
it's constant. So I've seen a lot more of that lately.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Sure.
it's hard because picking your own bandwidth that you're okay with, right? I know
Mhm.
people that are like, you eat out of your house, I would never. And yes, sometimes I get nervous eating outside of my house. And I think that
Mhm.
when I'm like that is when I get more reactions
Oh,
than
completely. Yeah.
if I didn't. If I'm like, well, it is what it is, say a prayer over my food and call it a day kind of
Right.
thing.
Right.
Um, so it's tough. I mean, again, you're not always chasing numbers with labs. You're also paying attention to symptoms and having to put the whole picture together and see integratively what said person needs for sure.
Yeah, for sure. This
Yeah.
has been a phenomenal
Yeah.
conversation.
I
Thank
know.
you.
That's so
Thank you.
fun.
Thank you. Yeah, we could keep talking and talking. I have no doubt. So we'll save that for another
Yeah,
podcast episode.
absolutely. For sure.
Absolutely. So thank you, Kelly Marie. I appreciate you so much. And thank
Oh,
you, everyone, for listening. Make
yeah.
sure that you leave this podcast episode a review. That would be amazing for both of us.
I will.
And share this with someone you love. So
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
you bet. We'll see you in the next episode. God bless.